Hi, this is Miss Shepherd. Welcome to lesson 2. So in the last lesson we were looking, or I was discussing art analysis being really important for you to do to get AO1 really nailed and covered. So you've got those marks in the bag because we've got to evidence everything. Also, the next bit which you can actually be thinking about now as well and actually acting upon is covering AO3 and doing some photography. And we are actually going to be, or the plan was to actually do some photography to cover AO3, but also to base your final piece of work on, which is going to be really a painting, but we can actually add other materials and stuff into that of our choosing. But we are actually focusing on photography and painting for this project, which is a tad difficult. In school we'll have cameras, we don't have many. Out of school or in lesson we can get away with using your mobile phones. They will not be as good, but you can be certainly using your mobile phone, or if you do have a camera you could be doing this around home. Now, the more evidence, photographic evidence that you've got, the better, because what you want to do is to be able to select your good photographs and hopefully ditch or have a pack of photographs that you think, oh God, they're a pantserini, and you can actually put them in a different pack and say, these didn't work well because the composition didn't work well, I chopped it up, I didn't get the focus right, and so you could actually talk about that. There's marks in that, but we want to also focus on being able to have lots and lots of images, so we have lots of choice, and then we can go, yeah, that one works, those images works, we can mess around with them, we can play with them, and we can look at digital imagery. And that is a real big hope that I'd like for us to do, and I'll put a link on for Pixlr if you've not come across it or I've not done that with you, where you can actually have a play. There's things like Pick Monkey, you can use things in Word, and as you've come across, you probably come across fireworks anyway. So anyway, waffling on as I do. So what is an object for photographic typology? Well, this is what it is. It's a study of typefaces in one respect, but also it's looking at a hat or an object. Now, if you notice with Camilla's work, if we zoom all the back way to hers, yeah, everything is laid out in a certain way, isn't it? It's actually quite logical. It's almost quite sterile in a way. So if we're looking at the typography for images, when we get there, right, you can see the very similar objects, or we've got the same sort of theme running through. It reminds me of Lisa Milroy, how things are laid out, or you know, and they're put in a uniform manner side by side. So you could actually be using this as an idea to be taking pictures. But think about also the artists that you have looked at. So if you have looked at Camilla, this would actually really work really well. Okay, so you could actually be classifying objects. I mean, who wouldn't want your yummy sort of chocky bars? And you could be doing that too. You could be looking at buildings, you know, around you. I mean, you've got a whole week. Yes, you've got to study, right? And there are breaks, so you've got your lunchtime, and you could be looking around the estate, for example, and you could be looking at the portraits of the estate. Okay, and you could be looking at buildings, other objects. You could be looking at objects that are personal to yourself, like the shoes, things that clothes, your makeup, and you could be photographing them in different ways. You could be using these objects to make up faces later. Don't know. You could actually be taking pictures of yourself. Now, I'm going to zoom back. You could have found Susan Saroff very interesting in the way that she magnifies things. So you could be looking at water, and you could actually be looking at distorting faces as well. You could be getting glasses of water like she has done, or bowls of, you might have like a big Pyrex dish. You could be putting your face or a friend's face underneath it. Not a friend's face because obviously they can't come round, but you could get a family member to help you. You could be trying to sort of do self-portraits, doing selfies, maybe using things like this and taking pictures that are distorted, maybe with your favourite objects, things that could be laid up later. Or you could be laying things out in a certain way, you know, your favourite foods, you know, they could be your favourite foods. You could be doing things like Jan Groover or Jan, I think it's Jan, I don't know if it's male or female, or he or she is male or female. So you could be looking at objects, but more in an abstract way. This person is very realistic in their style, but they actually have, on a couple of their images, really zoomed up closely and really looked at colour and looked at shine. You could be setting things up from above, again, like Y11 pen, again, personal objects. You could be looking at yourself as a student and the objects that you have as a student and the things that are important to you or that are making you stressed as a student at the moment. I had one student do that for an exam, how stressed out he was, working towards his exam. I'm going to try and adjust this a little bit. It's very frustrating how I can't have it how I want. You could be looking at things that are more macabre. You might find things more interesting like that. I mean, this is an intriguing image where they've shoved a real fish in a bowl. Yucky yuck. Okay, but there are things in school that we also can use to photograph, but think about what have you got around your home. I mean, back to Audrey Flack again, you know, you might have things like this around your home that you can bunch together. And even if it doesn't have personal meaning to you, you could actually create a meaning for it, you know. You could be finding even pictures that are personal to your family and friends, you know, all the things that you're maybe losing out at the moment. I mean, this could be quite important for you to do. You might really enjoy it. I mean, especially, you know, with regard to COVID, how everything you have been taken away from your regular life, you've been cut off to a certain extent, haven't you? So you could be looking at portraits and objects in that respect. And maybe how your dressing gown has become your main part of your life because that's what you want to stay in, your PJs and your dressing gown and watch lots of TV. You know, not that I'm condoning that you actually sit down and watch lots of TV and draw a TV. There might be things though that you've actually been getting into a little bit more since you haven't been in school in the same sort of way lately. Okay, so think about the photographs that you're going to be taking. We'll just zip through this. Think about how they're going to be taken. You know, think about, you know, your composition as well. For example, this image over here, not the information, is actually not a very good picture because it's offset. There's no real good focal point. You might, if you've actually sort of laid it out a little bit more like that, it would be more interesting. This, however, works a lot better. There's a very strong focal point in the centre. Everything's very nicely diagonal. The colours work well with one another. They're very complementary. So that can be very, very simple if you want it to. So you could be thinking about things to do with childhood, couldn't you? Your personal objects growing up. I mean, you could include your family in some sort of way into it. Things can be a little bit silly, you know. Think about, you know, all the little toys and stuff that you've got. So you could have all the stuff that you grew up with. You could actually have something with games of Scrabble. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe dominoes if you got it. Maybe like playing cards if you have them. So think about taking some photographs and evaluating things as you're going along, you know. Try and think of a story to go with it. Think about your composition. It's very important. Don't start sticking them in your sketchbook just yet. Again, please send them to me. So you might be, as you're going along, you might take your pictures and you're like, think, well, I might want to crop them a little bit. So you're thinking about them a little bit more. You can do that. But really, 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 really start taking those pictures. Let's make the most of the time. You've got time in the evening. I know you're going to be revising. You might have time during your double lesson when you're not doing your writing. You might be fed up of doing the art analysis writing. So this would be naturally a good way for you to go. So think about your pictures. Think about how they're going to look. Think about what, you know, you're sort of going to be interested in producing at the end of it. Because if we are doing a painting, you know, what is it going to look like? So don't forget, we've got all of this stuff to go through. So really, we want this nailed, okay? And we want to be getting on with this when we come back. I don't really want to be seeing this when we come back. Obviously, the first lesson back, we're going to go through it and see what we've done, and I'll waffle on at you a bit more. But this is where we want to be getting at because I really want to get to this point before we actually leave this year. I want a complete project right? It's really, really important. So think about your pictures, think about how they're going to look. I'm sure I've got more examples as we're going along. You know, there are probably loads. Yeah, so think about how they can be silly, you know, what other artists they have done. I know I'm going on for 10 minutes, but you know, they can look really amazing, really, really simple images. If you cannot think of it being about identity, about who you are, who someone else is, it doesn't matter. Think about quality. Think about, you know, taking good pictures that you can work from, that make you happy and pleased and proud. It's really, really, really important. Okay, so I'm going to bid you adieu, and I hope you do crack on with all of this work. Again, we will be monitoring you. Ha ha.